Hello and welcome to Canada Footy TV. My name is Ryan May here for the CFTV International Break Roundup Squaretable. There is some Rayn Rashid in the forecast tonight as he rolls in with a steady easterly breeze, and we've got Sameer Murji on the producer desk today. Back again is the ever-positive and excitable Jonah Acheson. Welcome back, Jonah.
Yes,
and
sir.
making his CFTV debut, the tallest man I know, a pained Arsenal fan, but happy Canada fan, Owen Hall. Welcome.
Yes,
Welcome. Thank you very much for being here. Owen.
You're welcome.
Boys, that was a fun set of games. What was your favorite moment, Owen?
Understatement of the year.
Yeah,
Definitely
okay.
understatement of the year.
Yeah, no kidding, eh?
It has to be the Atiba goal against the U.S. No doubt. Put the game to bed. And he had a chance right before, a few minutes before, put it right over the bar, but that sealed the deal. And, for me, that was Qatar booked right there. Not official, but
It felt like it. That moment where it'd been quite tense in Tim Hortons field up until that point. Milan Borjan had to, as he often does, just sort of keep us hanging by the skin of our teeth, and it was pretty nice. Elation is the word I would use to describe it.
Well, speaking of Milan Borjan, my favorite moment of this whole break was his phenomenal save off that corner kick header against the USA. I mean, that moment sealed the game for Canada. If that goal had gone in, who knows what would have happened, but that save then turned out into a 1-0 lead. It kept that, and then 2-0. We saw how it went down. It was just phenomenal.
You know what's funny? I'm also going with Milan Borjan, but I'm not going with the same save. That's how ridiculous this guy is. How about yesterday night?
Damn it.
That 89th minute save on that that didn't look like that chance was going to be dangerous until the ball started dropping. And as soon as it started dropping, it was like, oh no, Borjan, you got to be there. The reach back, the jumping backwards, diving save, just phenomenal. And then not even 2 minutes later, Jonathan David goes the other way and scores what would end up being the clinching goal for that.
Are you
that
taking
match
two
as well.
things as your moment right now together?
It's
I feel
literally
like you're cheating.
the whole thing. It's a 2-minute stretch.
Two-team Jonah.
Yeah,
Whoa,
literally
hey,
living
hey,
up
hey,
to his
hey,
living
hey,
up to his
hey,
nickname
hey,
already, buddy.
Taught
Mr.
me.
Ireland on the last episode.
Hey, Ireland's my roots, buddy. Okay,
You said that last time.
Ireland's just my roots. It's not. It doesn't mean I cheer for them, but I gotta say, Milan Borjan, hats off to you, man. It's literally every single game with this guy that there's an amazing moment, and that one just stuck out to me as, wow, that game could have been tied against an El Salvador team that Canada had to beat.
Samir, did you have a favorite moment from this last set of 3 fixtures? I know there were quite a few.
It's hard to pick something different than what you guys are mentioning. But I got to go with Kyle Larin's goal. He became Canada's all-time leading goal scorer. What a huge moment that is for Canadian history, Canadian soccer history. And it was a great goal. It was a crucial moment against USA. What more can I say?
Okay, so I was going to pick the Milan Borjan save against El Salvador, but Jonah got to it first. So I'm going to quick pivot to the Atiba Hutchinson goal, not because of its
FIFA goal.
not because of
FIFA
its
goal right
absurd
there.
hilarity, which
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into because it was one of the most bizarre moments of football I have ever seen in my life. That man at 39 years old was in his own box when that play started. He took it end to end. I don't care that he fell over. He fell over on the line. He went end to end. The ball went in, and it sort of it gave me confidence that he is still fit enough to captain Canada at the World Cup. A lot of people wouldn't necessarily have him as first choice. I get that. But I believe it's important to have a player with that level of intensity, with that level of drive, and somebody who understands the nation's sort of footballing nature and the nation's just entire struggle over the last. He's been there through it all. He played in that 8-1 game against Honduras.
But I think guys like him, Scott Arfield, who recently retired from international duty, and guys like Junior Hoylett deserve a lot of credit because they were there in the trenches, when things weren't going so well. And, as someone who's been following this team for a long time and has still been following them through those results, through that 8-1 and constant disappointment, those guys were bright spots in moments where for a long time it wasn't so bright for Canada. And, Scott Arfield being a part of that 2-0 win at BMO Field, played a really, really, really good game. And finally seeing Atiba Hutchinson getting, these guys may not play a part in the World Cup. We know Scott Arfield won't. But Junior Hoylett had a great little cameo against the U.S., had that nutmeg, went on a little run, almost created a goal there. But I think those three guys and a few more guys, which I'm sure I'm forgetting the names of.
Milan Borjan was
Milan Borjan was definitely in the trenches too at that point, and I think those guys deserve a lot of credit, and they're sort of holding up and allowing for this next sort of golden generation, as should be calling it, to really go out there and shine.
It really
for sure.
is.
And you just know that it would be really, really tough for Canada if Jonathan David or Alphonso Davies or one of these guys had to shoulder that load of being the captain. We've seen what it does to players in situations where they are the captain, the best player, like Mo Salah in Egypt even. He often finds himself weighed down by that captain's armband, and it's really, really key for them to have someone like that, like Atiba Hutchinson, who has championship-winning pedigree. He's got 3 titles in Besiktas, and he was key in all of them. He's truly a midfield marshal, and it's really encouraging that Canada have one of those because they're going to need him.
It was actually crazy to see him in the box. Even the commentator thought it was Jonathan David.
Yes.
And to see Atiba Hutchinson, someone you'd say a 6 who you wouldn't expect to make that run, made that run. That game needed a goal, and that was a game that I thought would peter out into a draw. Not the worst thing in the world for Canada, honestly. A draw on the road to El Salvador. Not the worst thing in the world, but, man, he got there, made that play. Credit to Kyle Larin as well with a nice little run, providing some width. And getting that result was so, so important and makes things even more guaranteed at this point.
Yeah. My actual sort of favorite moment was the Milan Borjan save, and for one reason in particular. And I think it's important to, as I sort of have highlighted now with Atiba Hutchinson, I think it's really important to have those sort of role players when you're going into a World Cup, when you're going into a tournament like this. And Milan Borjan has now proven to be as valuable as any of these other players on this team. He will come up with a save from a moment of individual brilliance when it looks like things are heading for a draw. And when you're in a 3-match international group stage, those moments will be absolutely massive.
One thing that stands out is that every single time he's made a save, Canada, for the most part, has gone down on the other end and has scored a big goal.
Every time.
And that matters. When you're a team that's playing the way that Canada is, in the U.S., against teams like the U.S., you have to sit back a little bit more. When you know, maybe there's a little bit more quality in midfield when you're dealing with guys like Weston McKennie. You have to sit back a little bit more. But when you have that trust in your goalkeeper that can keep you in a game, and when you finally get that save, a light switches, and Canada has that killer instinct to go back down on the counterattack and score a goal after that save, and that says so much about how much this team believes in their goalkeeper. And when Atiba's not in the squad, he plays that captain role to absolute perfection. And you have guys on the team that can get hot. Richie Larea loves to get in fights. I love that. I love the intensity, but he's always there to say to those guys like, "Hey, game's more important. Stay in the game." And I think he's so incredibly important in this team. So incredibly important.
With Borjan, we're talking about a player who's in the form of his life right now. I mean, 3 clean sheets in a row for this international break, spearheading Canada into this World Cup qualifying. I mean, let's be honest, he's a big reason that we got all the 9 points in this break, and he's a big reason why Canada feels confident going in towards to the World Cup.
What I would like to ask you guys next. Did any of you play soccer growing up? Owen, did you?
I did. I played for a while before my growth spurt, actually. My growth spurt did not do me well in terms of soccer, but yes, shout out Cherry Beach.
No Peter Crouch vibes?
No Peter Crouch vibes. I moved on quickly to basketball after that, but yeah, shout out Cherry Beach SC. That was my club there. Played at rep level for a couple of years, but yeah, played a little bit as a kid, but as sort of a big central defensive mid and played as a striker for a little bit for my school team. But yeah, it was fun. I liked
Okay.
it.
Rayn, did you?
Yeah, I played growing up as a kid, and then I took a long break until high school when one of my buddies was like, "Why don't you try out with me?" And so I did, and we made the team, and we ended up winning cities that year. I was super psyched.
Nice.
Yeah, this was back when I had hair.
Oh,
It
man.
was quite.
A decade
Didn't have
ago.
to-
No,
didn't have to
it
do
actually
yourself
wasn't
like
that
that.
long ago, to be honest. 5 years, maybe, but a lot can happen in 5 years. Anyways, yeah, it was a great. It was a great time.
Oh, man.
Great time, yeah.
At least you still have the beard, though.
I do, and this is looking sexy as ever.
Yeah, for me, like, I played, but I didn't play at very high level. I played from, like, when I was 4 until I was 8 at, like, a minor league level. There was not much going on there. Actually, at one point, I remember playing in my young years. I don't know what the city of Barrie was on that year, but one year we had a 5-on-5 league, and
Five aside.
it was
aside.
five aside with substitutions like in a hockey game. That was chaos. Scored a lot of goals that season, though, I must say, but I didn't end up going back to it until I was 16, and even at that, it was just little, like, kind of house league level soccer. So I wasn't never really in depth with it, but I must say I had that right-footed touch. That's all I'll add to that.
All right, so thank you, Jonah, for your little humble brags over there about your
Left-footed touch, not so good.
about your house league soccer days, buddy. Sameer, I got questions for you, and it's the same one.
Similar to Jonah, my history in soccer is just in the house league. Like, I played for a couple years when I was younger. I just played with a couple buddies of mine. Like, I've always loved the sport. It was my favorite sport growing up, so decided to get into it. I was never really that athletic, so maybe one day we'll go through some videos of watching me play soccer.
Or we don't have to do that. We're also okay with not doing that. So I also played. I played for a while. It was my dad's favorite sport. It's my favorite sport. I played and then I stopped, and then I played a little and then I stopped. But one thing that I always found consistent is that the opinion among my friend group about the actual sport of soccer, it was never particularly high. That being said, it was also the sport that we would play in the playground at lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really strange situation to be in because Canada has it's kind of like mimics Canada's international success, really, because the youth engagement with Canadian soccer has been high since the 1980s. Really, really high. Almost everybody I know, whether they enjoyed soccer, watched soccer, almost everybody I know has played soccer at one point or another growing up. The barriers to entry are so low. It's always been really high in Canada. But I was, for the most part, the only one of my friends who was really invested in it. I don't know if any of you guys have had any similar experiences, but I didn't feel like there was anything pushing me in to continue soccer. And
Yeah.
other than my love of the sport, which I craved, and I still could sort of, I guess, quench by watching, there was nothing to draw me into playing anymore. And I don't know what it is about the mentality in North America, but there's something that isn't right about our feeling towards the game.
Yeah, I think Canada has that, like, Timbit soccer kind of culture where it's, like, soccer moms and orange slices, and you play it as a kid, and everyone just sort of runs around, toe punts the ball and stuff like that.
Nice.
But from people that I've talked to in academies and stuff like that, there's a disconnect when it comes to that professional level when you're becoming sort of late teenage years where you have to take that jump. And for a lot of people, that jump isn't really available when it comes to, and, we're seeing it right now. We're seeing a couple more guys coming out of, leagues like League One Ontario. I know Alistair Johnson was a member of that. And I think, there just has to be more routes available for people to go in and make that jump from being, an amateur playing as a kid or a teenager to, making that jump to the professional level. And I know someone like Jonathan David is a great example of that, who, never went into any sort of MLS academy, stayed clear of any sort of, North American professional soccer program stuck with Ottawa Internationals until he got himself a move to Europe. And I think there has to be more resources allocated to the clubs that are, doing that, and these leagues like League One Ontario, and we're seeing more of that stuff coming into the CPL. And I think the more resources, the more money that gets allocated, the more we'll see that culture just sort of shift.
I think another issue is, like you said, Ryan, is that a lot of kids are playing soccer, and as they grow up, they slowly fall out of it. And I think a problem is that kids need heroes to look up to.
Mm-hmm.
And in Canada, and especially in our age, when we were growing up, we didn't really have any Canadian soccer heroes to look up to. Now kids have Jonathan David, Alphonso Davies, all these guys that we've mentioned. But when we were growing up, we looked up to hockey players, basketball players, and that's why we grew up after we were kids playing basketball and hockey and other sports like that. So unless you were growing up in Europe or you had family from Africa or international, then you had soccer players and football players to look up to because you were into and growing up with watching European leagues or Spanish leagues.
Yep.
But if you grew up in Canada with Canadian parents or parents that didn't grow up in soccer countries, you're not going to be inspired by soccer because you have no one to look up to. And I think we just need to shout out all these young Canadian players on Team Canada right now because, like you said, this is a golden era for soccer because we have all these young Canadian athletes for all these young Canadian athletes to look up to.
And you mentioned it and hit the nail right on the head with the fact that we didn't really have that many legends to look up to. Because I've noticed watching the One Soccer coverage of these Canadian matches, they'll mention, oh, this legend who I've literally never heard of, like, and this guy who set this record, his name is blah, 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 and I've never heard of this guy in my life. And I'm like, who is this? I need to do a background search on a guy I've never heard who is supposedly a Canadian legend? Because we didn't have those recognizable names because they weren't promoted enough. And I know, Ryan, you're mentioning those friends when you were growing up who weren't really invested in soccer. I was one of those people. I played soccer because it was easily accessible and you didn't have to pay a ton for it like you do for hockey. And that was a big driving factor, and I find it was a lot for young kids back 10 years ago who wanted to play hockey but couldn't afford it, so they picked soccer instead. And now we're seeing a shift where soccer is much more desirable as a sport to play, and it's not just based on money, it's based on where you can go now with it in Canada specifically.
And that's why you saw a lot of immigrant kids playing soccer instead of hockey, for example, or football. And it's just the way it is, you know?
I really, really like the point you made, Owen, about there being sort of the development not really existing and how there needs to be more resources allocated to it. Is that not exactly what's about to happen now?
I think it is. I think
This is okay. And so everyone seems to be generally in agreement that the golden age of Canada soccer is on the way.
Right now. It's starting now.
It's starting now, and it could be sustained. It is a potentially sustainable situation.
I would, I mean, I agree with you, but I would argue that the golden age has already started, right? Like, we have this team who's having one of the best qualifications in CONCACAF history about to make it to the World Cup. And all this, we're talking about how hyped everyone's getting, and we're seeing more fans already showing up. Today, last week, we were seeing the increase in the media coverage. We're seeing the increase in like actual fans talking about it. But imagine in December. Imagine when Canada's actually playing in the World Cup.
Oh my goodness.
And they're playing against big nations, big soccer nations such as Brazil,
Those words
England.
give me chills.
The nation's going to go crazy, right?
right.
Like the popularity is going to increase that much more. And so coupled with the golden generation, but also their results, them making it to the World Cup, that's what's going to make us propel soccer in our country.
You got me thinking about Milan Borjan making a big save on like Erling Haaland or Robert Lewandowski.
Imagine that.
I don't-
Imagine
think about it.
I don't think
Borjan
Norway is
dives
going
across
to the World Cup, but
I just see like Alfonso
Neymar,
Davies and Neymar Jr.
Neymar,
like,
But imagine
handshaking
that.
on the
Imagine
pitch right
Canada's
there.
playing against like England, okay, and
Oh.
everyone's been hyped about England these past few years, and it's a tight game, and Harry Kane has an open opportunity
my
in
goodness.
the box.
Harry Kane's gonna blow
Yo,
it as usual, man.
Samir, you're making me cry inside,
And
man.
Borjan
Stop.
dives across and tips it over the net.
Oh
the country's
my
gonna go
God.
crazy.
He won't even need it. Harry
A
Kane's gonna
Borjan
miss an
save
open
on
net.
Harry Kane is honestly
You
a
didn't give a
Canadian
wrong-
soccer fan's
wrong
wet
example.
dream. It sounds absolutely
That
beautiful.
becomes a Canadian heritage moment immediately, does
Oh
it not?
yeah. Okay, so
Make
you know
that
what,
an
Samir?
NFT.
I was gonna go into something
Yeah.
else, but you set me off now. Let's look at the England squad for a second here, please, guys. Do me the absolute pleasure. That's like probably one of the top 4 squads in world football
That's
right
fair,
now.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not. I wouldn't say they're the best. They're within a fighting chance to win the whole thing, but they're not necessarily the favorites. If you look at this Canadian team, and you tell them that they're now all playing for England. How many of them are going to make the squad? Not the first 11. How many of them are going to actually make the squad? And so I've been sort of sitting on this and thinking about it. And I actually think the number's a little higher than you would imagine. I do think...
What's your number?
Okay, so I'm going to list the players, first of all, that I think would
Okay.
make it. So I think you would have Milan Borjan as the third keeper in the squad.
Okay.
I don't think England are particularly strong there.
Dude, I wonder if he challenges Pickford,
think you-
actually.
You would have Alphonso Davies in the squad for sure.
I can agree with that.
I think you would have.
Oh,
I
100%.
honestly think you would have Jonathan David in the squad for sure.
I can agree with that.
And I really do think Kyle Larin is a potential like back end option
No,
as
I
like
don't think so.
as like a last member of the squad. Like, you think about the kind of guys they were bringing.
But you got to think of the quality about England here, man. I
Okay.
mean, even looking at the goalkeeper spot, like you have Jordan Pickford, Aaron, maybe Borjan gets in a third, but that's a big if. That's a big if. We have guys playing in the Premier League. I think the 3 right now are Pickford, Ramsdale, and maybe someone like Sam Johnson or something. I don't. Maybe gets in a. But for me, it's 2. For me, it's 2. It's Jonathan David and Alphonso Davies. I don't think you can make a case, especially for Kyle. Like, is Kyle Larin better than someone like a Calvert-Lewin or some of these guys who are established? And I mean, you could make 3 England teams and send them to a tournament, and they would, do decently. And like for me, the quality of these top sides in Europe are just so deep. I think Davies, David, and that's where the line is. And I know we're all high off of what's happened. So am I a little bit, but man, it's just those 2 guys, and that's where the line ends for me.
I gotta agree with Owen here. I mean, we should pump the brakes a little bit.
Yeah.
When I look at this team, I think of the quote, "The whole is greater than the sum of the parts."
For sure.
And the reason this team is so successful is, I mean, of course, it's the individual talent, but it's also the way they're set up, the way they're playing. Herdman's doing a phenomenal job with this team. And I got to agree with Owen there. I do think maybe max, only 2, maybe only 3 max. But I can't even name you the third person. Like Alphonso Davies, I would say would be a lock to get into that English squad. I think Jonathan David would be a squad player in that English
Yeah, I think so too.
He wouldn't be one of the starting 11. He wouldn't be hovering around.
I think Jonathan David could be a question.
But I think
Could be a question.
yeah.
But when you look at I'm looking at the England squad's recent call-ups right now, and maybe you wouldn't make the So I'm gonna isolate Kyle Larin from this situation because I think the goalkeeper debate is a reasonable one. Honestly, like I do based on what England actually have at the goalkeeping situation, I do think sneaking in as a third goalie Milan Borjan is totally reasonable.
Well, with the form he's in,
yeah,
and we
this
talked
form,
about
but
that. Yes,
Right
I
now,
always
yeah.
believe that you should take informed play. You need to take a mix of informed players and experienced players, and that is the best way to manage a national side. So that being said, at forward, some of the players England have brought recently include Ollie Watkins, Patrick Bamford.
Okay,
And-
I'm not going to hear any Patrick Bamford slander on this podcast. Patrick Bamford's so underrated. No Patrick Bamford slander. But like Patrick Bamford was putting up numbers last year in what people call the best league in the world. You know, there's difference here. You know, like I say, there's levels to this game, and I think Ollie Watkins still a great striker. These are guys that do it day in day out at club level. And there's a difference between club level and international level. International level, you got to turn up once every couple of months. Club level, week in, week out. And I know Kyle Larin does this thing at Besiktas, you know, he does. Yeah. But man, these are guys that are putting up numbers in some of the best league in the world currently. And I think you can't really, you know,
I guess.
And you can stretch a little bit.
Maybe I'm a little bit on a high.
See, I almost
I think you're right about the 3, Ryan.
Yeah.
I think you're solid about Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, squad player, fine. And Milan Borjan is the 3rd goalie for England. You guys couldn't even name a solid 3rd. The most obvious choice is Milan Borjan.
Milan
At least we can
Borjan
put
or
a
Nick
name.
Pope?
If I'm just going off of pedigree,
I forgot about Nick Pope.
I could name goalies ahead of
Pickford,
Borjan.
Ramsdale, Nick Pope. There you go.
Yeah.
By the
There's
way,
3.
I have a projected roster up here for England at the World Cup, and Pickford and Ramsdale aren't even on the list.
Okay, that's bad.
Yeah, it's
and
not.
Ramsdale,
It's not great.
future England number
Ramsdale
1.
is going to the World Cup.
Yeah, and I would agree with you there for sure. But they're forward options. There's only 6 of them. It's Ollie Watkins, Raheem Sterling, Bukayo Saka, Marcus Rashford, Harry Kane, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin. It would be really hard for Jonathan David to get in with those forwards right there.
I retract my Kyle Larin statement. I'd like to take it back. I'd like to do a rewind on that whole situation there.
It would be very tough for even Jonathan David to break into that.
Yeah.
Here's what the moral of this whole thing that the whole thing that I've learned now is that this team is so exciting,
intoxicating almost.
It's actually intoxicating. Like I cannot get I've said it 3 or 4 times. I cannot wipe the smile off my face. It has just been such an incredible ride, and like here we are getting to have this conversation. Like I don't give a fuck. Like I was trying not to say
that was a build
it,
up.
but I don't give a fuck if Kyle Larin can't make the England team. Because to be totally honest, I had so much fun just having this conversation, guys.
Bro, it's totally okay to have this conversation. That's how far this Canada team has gotten. That's
so
how
exciting
it is that like we can have these conversations because they are the best team in the CONCACAF. So we need to start comparing them to other teams in the world.
Dude, I just want a head-to-head match between England and Canada now. You got me, guys. You got me fired up about this. I want to see this now.
And if we're hoping for a dream run, a possible dream run,
an Iceland run
in the Qatar World Cup, then we need to be comparing this team to the best teams in the world because we're going to come up against the best teams in the world. We're going to be playing the best players that, they might be better than individually each of these Canadian players, but as a whole, our team has a chance. And that's why we're having these conversations. That's what makes it so exciting. So it's okay to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Luck of the draw would be getting Qatar in our division, but we'll move on from that and save that for later.
I think that this next window is going to be very telling.
It'll be a party.
Because that's exactly it. It'll be interesting to see how many more people jump on. Because really, like anybody who has ever had any interest in Canada on a sporting level, please jump on. We want you. We're ready. We need as many of you guys behind
No
this
gatekeeping
team.
around here. No gatekeeping.
Never.
No. We want everybody. We want absolutely everybody involved because that is how you become a story like Iceland. Mm-hmm. And Iceland made it to the quarterfinals. They beat England 1 World Cup ago.
Man.
Do you think Canada can make it to that quarterfinal spot?
I think not even talking about their quality, but I think the way that Herdman has set up this team is very conducive to pulling off upsets. Absolute killer
100%.
instinct on the counterattack.
Nail on the head right.
When you have guys like Tajon Buchanan and Alphonso Davies that provide width on the counterattack. And, Jonathan David has a little bit of hold up and he has pace as well. And I think we've proven that we can get results against teams that have a better midfield than us. And, I always take into account, I think midfield wins games. But but we beat the U.S. without Stefan Eustáquio, arguably one of our most important players, if not in a lot of games our most important player. He pulls the strings in that midfield, and
and without Hutchinson,
and without Atiba as well. And I think Herdman, both in terms of how he sets up his team and in terms of his locker room presence as well, these guys have so much belief, man, so much belief. And I think a light switched when we beat the U.S. at that game at BMO Field. And I was like, okay, like we can do this now. We can do this. And I think the fearlessness that he's instilled in the locker room, and also the way that he's tactically flexible as well, Canada switching from a 5 at the back to a 4-4-2 to a diamond, is so conducive to pulling off those upsets. And we've seen that. We've seen Japan give Belgium a good run for their money, World Cup or so ago. And I think we've seen stories, like you said, like Iceland. I just want to see Canada not even win. I just want to see Canada give a good team a run for their money. That's all.
Round of 16. That's what I want to see. Just get to the round of 16. That will make me happy, because so far we haven't had any disappointments with this team. With this Canada team in this time frame right now, still have not lost a qualifying match.
Feels way too good to be true.
It does. It feels so good.
We're riding such a wave.
But that's the kind of thing that dreams are made of and upsets are made of, is those moments where you can't feel that defeat. If you never taste or feel that defeat, you're never going to play with fear. And that's what this Canadian team has shown. They don't play with any fear, and going up against a big team like England or Belgium or Italy, Portugal, these teams will not scare Canada at this point, and I think that's probably the best case scenario.
And this fearlessness is instilled in the fans as well, especially after this international break. I mean, coming into this one, we were all saying, oh, no Alphonso Davies. What's going to happen?
36 minutes.
Canada's going to play the USA. Are they still going to be able to win? We know that they're going to probably do well against Honduras and El Salvador. They're bottom of the league. But right now, where they're going to play the U.S., is Alphonso Davies going to be a big factor? This team, what they did without those players that you listed off, Owen, is amazing. And when we go and we're going to play England, no one is going to say, man, I'm a little bit afraid. I'm a little bit worried. We got Milan in net.
Honestly, but
Sorry?
I might.
You might, but that's because you have to have
you
faith.
have this. You have an inherent knowledge of the
Quality.
quality
Yeah.
depth,
Yeah.
and the important thing that you are like hitting on the head, Rain, and it is maybe the most the part that I love so much about sports, about all of this about all of this with Canada, is that people who don't necessarily have that knowledge of the game, have that lifelong connection to the sport, can suddenly jump in and feel it on such a deep level, on such a patriotic, on a level that most Canadians don't get to feel in any time other than the Winter Olympics and hockey.
And if Canada does go to Qatar, and they will, Canadians are going to travel. They are going to be there.
Canadians will be there in their multiples.
And you know that if they play England, they play Brazil, that stadium is going to be packed with just as many Canadians as there is going to be with England or Brazilian fans.
If they sell tickets evenly, which often they do,
FIFA does a good job at that.
Matches, Canada will not suffer from lack of support either. And as we all know how much that means in a football match.
And Ryan, you brought this up, and I think it's a great opportunity to have a conversation. The Winter Olympics are coming up. I just want to know, what would mean more to Canada? Canada going to the World Cup and placing there, or a gold medal gold?
It's no question.
For hockey, Canada Olympics.
It's no question.
It's
has to be
not
the
a
World
question
Cup.
even a
It's
little
Canada
bit.
World Cup, right?
The World Cup is the biggest sporting event in the world.
That's kind of an awesome point.
Yeah,
Here's the thing. Canada has plenty of Olympic golds.
Absolutely.
If Canada goes to the World Cup and does well there, like you said, round of 16, Jonah,
Yeah.
this will be a moment in history that no one will
It's
forget.
uncharted
Could
territory.
be
It's
the
uncharted
biggest
territory.
moment in Canadian sports history, is the level of what we are talking about. They've never done it. And this is the biggest stage in sports.
There's 3 more games left in this World Cup qualifying. Do we think that Canada can go undefeated through the whole thing?
Yeah,
That would
certainly.
be
I mean,
incredible, and absolutely with the
John
3 opponents they
Herdman-
have left.
Yeah.
John Herdman is no holds barred. He's sending it.
It's absolutely within reach.
Like, they want to be as high up in that qualifying group as they absolutely possibly can.
For pots. For
pots,
yeah,
exactly, right?
yeah.
Like, if they can get into pot C, it's going to be a whale of a time. I
And
have...
the 3 games. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
there,
go ahead.
But the 3 games that we have left. I mean, it's Costa Rica, Jamaica, and Panama. Now, not to like slander those teams or to
Watch what you say here, buddy.
underestimate
Our
those
Panamanian listeners are up in arms right now.
teams. No, not to underestimate those teams.
Again.
But we've mentioned multiple times throughout this conversation that Canada's the best team in the CONCACAF division. And the teams that typically we would compare them to are USA and Mexico, not Panama, Costa Rica, and Jamaica. So I really do think that Canada can go undefeated, Rayn. I believe that it's fully within our reach. And not only that, if they do go undefeated and they do make their way into the easier pot and get an easier draw, it'll be better for us in the World Cup.
Okay. We are out of time. Literally. Because Jonah Acheson has so graciously stayed and has to travel.
Your boy's got to sprint for a train.
Yeah. So we are going to cut it there for now. But we will be back, and we will be back soon. We will have a weekly men's national team roundup for you guys. We will be here next week. Actually, I guess it's a week and a half from now when the women's team is in the Four Nations tournament over in England because they're fucking sick.
Absolutely.
And we're going to cover that as well. And then we'll be back again in March. You can expect lots of content, and we appreciate it. Every one of you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Ryan May. Jonah Acheson on my left. Owen Hall in front of me. Rayn Rashid also in front of me. And in front of me behind the glass, producer Sameer Murji.